One of the biggest mindset shifts you can make is this: healing is a partnership, it's not a transaction. We have been conditioned to think of healthcare like this: you go to a practitioner, they tell you what's wrong, they tell you what to do. You get better or you don't. But that model breaks down when we start dealing with chronic conditions because no practitioner, no matter how skilled, can see everything happening in your body day to day, minute to minute. They don't feel your symptoms. They don't see your patterns outside of their clinic. They don't know how your body responds hour by hour. You do. Hello, and welcome back to the Pain Free for Life podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rob Vanbergen. Today, we're talking about something that may actually be more important than any protocol, any device, or any treatment plan you follow, and that is your own role in healing. Because there's a shift that has to happen for real, sustainable progress to occur, especially when you're dealing with something chronic, complex, or long-standing. That shift is moving from being a passive patient to becoming an empowered participant in your healing. This doesn't mean doing everything yourself. It doesn't mean rejecting guidance, but it does mean understanding that your role is not small. It is central to this whole thing. Today, I want to walk you through how to think about that in a way that actually gives you more clarity, more confidence, and more consistency in your healing journey. Now, one of the biggest mindset shifts you can make is this: healing is a partnership, it's not a transaction. We have been conditioned to think of healthcare like this: you go to a practitioner, they tell you what's wrong, they tell you what to do. You get better or you don't. But that model breaks down when we start dealing with chronic conditions because no practitioner, no matter how skilled, can see everything happening in your body day to day, minute to minute. They don't feel your symptoms. They don't see your patterns outside of their clinic. They don't know how your body responds hour by hour. You do. And that's why your role matters so much, because an empowered patient begins to understand that practitioners bring expertise, but you bring awareness. And when those two things come together, that's when progress really starts to build. So instead of asking, what should I do? You begin asking, what is my body responding to? And how can I support that more effectively? And this question alone puts you back into the process. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest barriers to empowerment: fear. Most people begin their healing journey from a place of fear. You have a fear of symptoms. You have a fear of diagnosis. You have a fear of making the wrong decision and a fear of it getting worse. And that fear then creates urgency. It creates this feeling that you need to act quickly, fix things now, not make mistakes. But here's the problem: urgency often leads to overreaction. It leads to jumping between protocols, to over-treating, to second-guessing every decision you make and losing trust in the process that's been put in front of you. Now, the empowered patient has to learn to shift from fear to curiosity. Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? An empowered patient will start asking, what is my body trying to communicate? And that one little shift changes your entire relationship with symptoms, because now instead of reacting, you are observing, and instead of panicking, you are learning. And curiosity slows things down just enough to make better decisions. Now, the next concept is critical, and it's where a lot of people lose momentum. Healing is not linear. I know that's not what people want to hear, but it is not linear, especially with chronic conditions. We expect healing to look like steady improvement, to look like clear progress with no setbacks. But in reality, it looks like progress, then fluctuation, then stabilization, then progress again, and sometimes even improvement, followed by what feels like a couple of steps back. And that's where people panic. They think it was working and now it's not. But what's really happening here is the system is just recalibrating. The body is adjusting to a new baseline. It's processing changes. It's reorganizing how it responds. And the empowered patient understands this. They don't abandon a plan at the first sign of fluctuation. They zoom out, and we can look then at trends over time, not day-to-day changes. And that's what allows them to stay consistent long enough to actually see these long-lasting results. Now, what about advocacy? Because this is a big one. Being empowered does not mean doing everything alone. It does not mean rejecting professional guidance. It means being a participant in your own care. You should ask questions when something doesn't make sense. You should speak up if something doesn't feel right. You should share your observations clearly. Again, you know what your body is feeling. We don't see it every day. Be honest about what is and isn't working for you. And this is where a lot of people will struggle because they don't want to challenge the practitioner. They don't want to seem difficult. They don't want to say the wrong thing. But good practitioners want feedback. They need it because your experience helps guide the process. So instead of just thinking, I don't want to question this, think to yourself, I want to contribute to this. We see this all the time with our treatment coordinator team. We want to know when something isn't working. Don't come back to us months later and tell us it never made a difference. Tell us now so that we can actually help you and make those adjustments. Sometimes that's all it is. A simple adjustment can make a massive difference. Now let's address one of the biggest modern challenges: too much information. We live in a time when there are endless protocols, there are endless opinions, there are endless strategies available, and what happens is people try something for a short period of time, then they switch again, and that is creating inconsistency for your body. It's creating confusion. It's creating a lack of real feedback because nothing is given enough time to work, right? Now, the empowered patient understands consistency builds momentum. So instead of chasing the next solution, they choose a direction, they commit to that direction, they observe the response, they adjust strategically. Healing doesn't come from constantly restarting the healing journey. It comes from building on what is working already. And there's one final balance that's important here as well, and that's just listening to your body in a way that means you're not overreacting to every signal. Because the truth is that not every system means, oh, something is wrong here. Sometimes it just means the system is adjusting, the body is processing, or the nervous system is recalibrating. The goal is to become a skilled observer, to notice patterns, to recognize trends, to distinguish between temporary fluctuation and meaningful change. And that's what gives you clarity throughout this whole process. Now, if I could leave you with one takeaway, it's this: confidence in your healing doesn't come from certainty. It comes from participation. It comes from showing up, from observing, from learning, from adjusting, and from staying consistent. You do not need to control everything. You don't need to get everything perfect, but you do need to stay engaged. Because ultimately, healing is not something that happens to you. It is something you have to be actively a part of. Now, a short but sweet episode here, but important for many, something that you guys really needed to hear, and many of you will definitely be using this information to hopefully carry yourself forward to making your protocols more successful. I really appreciate you joining me for this episode. If this resonated with you, definitely share it with someone who you think needs to feel more confident and supported in their healing journey. We're helping people one person at a time. So I'll see you for the next episode, everyone. Take care.